who murdered John.F. Kennedy's favorite mistress Mary Pinchot Meyer, and why. Mary Pinchot Meyer was a celebrated up-and-coming artist, the ex-wife of a CIA operative, and the favorite mistress of U.S. President John F. Kennedy. It was said that unlike most of his other mistresses, JFK viewed her as his intellectual equal and even discussed state secrets with her. On October 12, 1964, Pinchot Meyer finished the painting and went for her customary daily walk along the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal towpath in Georgetown. Mechanic Henry Wiggins was trying to fix a car on Canal Road and heard a woman cry out, "Someone help me, someone help me." Wiggins heard 2 gunshots and ran to a low wall looking upon the path where he saw a black man in a light jacket, dark slacks, and a dark cap standing over the body of a white woman. Pinchot Meyer's body had 2 bullet wounds, one in the left temple and one in the back. An FBI forensic expert testified at trial that dark halos on the skin around both entry wounds suggested they had been fired at close range, possibly point blank. The precision, placement and instantaneous lethality of the wounds suggested to the coroner that the killer was highly trained in the use of firearms. Approximately 40 minutes after the murder, Washington, D.C. Police Detective John Warner spotted a soaking wet African-American man named Ray Crump about a quarter of a mile from the murder scene. Crump wasn't running, he was walking, Detective Warner testified at the murder trial. Crump was arrested at 1:15 p.m. near the murder scene based on car mechanic Wiggins' statement to police that Crump was the man he had seen standing over the victim's body, as well as Crump's inability to give police a coherent explanation for his presence in the area. The day after the murder, a second witness, Army Lieutenant William L. Mitchell, came forward and told police that when jogging on the towpath the preceding day, he had seen a black man trailing a white woman he believed was Mary Meyer. Mitchell's description of the man's clothing was similar to the clothing Crump had been wearing that day. On the strength of the statements of these 2 witnesses, Crump was indicted without a preliminary hearing. However, no gun was ever found, and Crump was never linked to any gun of the type used to murder Mary Pinchot Meyer. The FBI crime report, withheld from the defense during the trial and published by Peter Janney in his book Mary's Mosaic, documented that there was no forensic evidence linking Crump to the victim or murder scene. Despite the fact that Pinchot Meyer bled profusely from her head wound, no trace of her blood was found on Crump's person or clothing. On the afternoon of the murder, hours before police had identified the body, CIA official Wistar Janney first placed a call to Meyer's brother-in-law Ben Bradley, and then subsequently to Cord Meyer, notifying them both of Meyer's death. When Crump came to trial, Judge Howard Corcoran ruled Mary Pinchot Meyer's private life could not be disclosed in the courtroom. Pinchot Meyer's background was also kept from DeVay Johnson Roundtree, Crump's lawyer, who later recalled she could find out almost nothing about the murder victim. It was as if she existed only on the towpath on the day she was murdered. At trial, Roundtree demonstrated the porousness of the police dragnet and showed that Ray Crump was 50 pounds lighter and 5 inches shorter than the 5 feet 8 inch, 185-pound male that Henry Wiggins had described to police. Although Lieutenant William L. Mitchell estimated the height of the man he claimed to have seen trailing Mary Meyer at 5 feet 8 inches, Mitchell was not able to identify Ray Crump as that man when Mitchell testified at trial. Crump was acquitted of all charges on July 29, 1965, and the murder remains unsolved. Author Nina Burler has argued that Crump's post-trial criminal history indicates his capacity to murder Meyer. Defense attorney DeVay Roundtree, however, attributed Crump's post-trial violence to the trauma he suffered during his 8-month imprisonment for the Meyer murder. Other post-trial revelations appear to corroborate his innocence in the Meyer murder, notably the likely presence of another black man at the scene after his arrest and the fact that the police search for his jacket was dispatched 15 minutes before his arrest. Crump's attorney DeVay Roundtree, in her autobiography Mighty Justice, stated that Crump had an alibi witness in the person of the married woman with whom he was having a sexual encounter near the crime scene, that the woman's account squared with Crump's account to Roundtree, but that she refused to testify out of fear of her husband and disappeared before trial. The brutal murder of Alan Wood tortured to death for his PIN number. CCTV footage and footprints. Alan Wood was a 50-year-old man who lived a completely normal life in the sleepy English village of Lound. He worked in Sainsbury's and ran a gardening business in summer and spring to supplement his income. He was well known and well liked in his village and was described as kind and gentle and that he enjoyed the simple things in life. He had an interest in biking and photography. He had been married in 1992 to his wife Joanne, but they later separated after 11 years of marriage. Having no children of his own, he enjoyed spending time with his nieces and nephews. He had many friends and had an active social life. However, due to the size of the small village he lived in, his social life centered completely around the local pub, the Willoughby Arms in Little Bytham, where he regularly enjoyed a few pints with friends. The timeline in crime. Alan was officially last seen at the Willoughby Arms on the 21st of October 2009 by some friends. On the 24th of October, a friend and work colleague stopped by to check on Alan as he had not turned up for his shift but was confused to see both Alan's back and front door wide open. He tried calling out Alan's name but there was no response from the home. Finding the entire situation odd, he called Alan's landlord, and when he arrived at the property, the two went inside and found an awful scene. Alan's hands had been bound with soap and he was lying on the floor in a pool of his own blood. His body had stab wounds all over his body, especially to his face and head. His throat had been slit, which caused his death, and most horrifically a deep wound at the back of his neck suggested that a decapitation had been attempted but abandoned. The only thing missing from Alan's house were his bank cards, which were determined later to be the reason for his death. The investigation, evidence and theories. A massive investigation was launched by the Lincolnshire Police called Operation Magnesium. Police determined Alan had had an extremely normal day. He had went to Morrison's early to shop and stopped by the Willoughby Arms later that evening for a pint with friends. Police have stated they believe Alan was killed that night when he went home. Perhaps the most surprising part of this case was the amount of evidence. On the cell top used to bound Alan's hands, forensics found a partial bus ticket for a local bus company called The Lane. A size 8 footprint was found at the scene, which could only have belonged to one of two Converse styles at the time. And perhaps most important, a blood sample was found which was not Alan's. Forensics were able to create a full DNA profile from this, however it has never been matched to anyone in any UK or international database. A witness came forward to say that she had seen two men using the ATM in Sainsbury's that night at 9:30 p.m. This was crucial because police had found out Alan's cards had been used after he was dead at several different ATMs 11 different times, with only 2 being successful. £700 was taken from Alan's account. After combing through CCTV, police found footage at the Sainsbury's cash point of a suspicious man who had covered his face with a scarf. This man has been dubbed ATM Man. A fit of the man can be found here. ATM Man was described as being 5'9", 5'11", medium build and possibly walking with a limp. It has been theorized he walked this way because one of his legs was longer than the other. Robbery seems to be the obvious motive here, but why did Alan meet such a horrific death? His sister was quoted saying, "Why do that to such gentlemen? If they had wanted money he would have given it to them." It has been theorized that this was a case of mistaken identity, and that Alan was mistaken for his boss at Sainsbury''. He apparently looked very similar to his boss, with them both having a heavy build and dark hair. Alan also had a Jaguar, which may have given him the appearance of a rich man. There is also a theory that Alan's use of sex workers have something to do with his murder. However, there is simply no evidence, nor is there evidence to even back up the claim he used sex workers in the first place. Over 20,000 people have been spoken to regarding Alan's murder, and yet almost 11 years on, no new evidence has come to light.